Greetings and welcome to the Pure Report. I'm your host, Rob Ludeman, and it is time to bring the orange. And I am super excited to have Ashish Gupta on the program with us today, coming from formerly One Touch, now Everpure Data Intelligence. And this is the third in our launch series, and we're going to end with a really, really important topic today. Welcome to the program. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much. Super excited to be here, and I'm going to match your energy. So
yes,
let's get to it.
Yes. Well, exceed my energy. No,
All
no.
right.
I always bring the energy. It almost seems like yesterday that I was meeting you backstage at sales kickoff when I was scrambling around getting things going, and you were this very calm presence backstage, and we had a nice little chat. And now here we are 4 months later. One Touch is now part of Everpure, and we went out at Accelerate with a big message and a big story. How does that feel? It's super exciting for you guys.
It is first a super huge privilege to be part of Everpure. I would say the last 3 months have been exceeding expectations.
That's excellent.
On many, many levels. At sales kickoff, I thought you were the calming effect compared to me.
You're too kind.
The great part of it was the welcome that we've had and the intellectual honesty that we've felt from day one, right? Even during the diligence process to now as we go in and speak to customers. It's just phenomenal. The love of the customers for us, the respect from our team of our customers, and the absolute passion for our products is just infectious, and I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, I talk about culture on the program a lot, and I've been doing this for 8 years here at the company, but it comes back to that, and it's not just where and how we hire, but also I definitely think that comes into play when we look at companies to partner with or to acquire and augment the offering that we have, because it is really that customer first, partner-led motion that we have, and you and the team fit in. I got to work with Mahesh. I've gotten to work with Kirk and Jesse and doing Accelerate things, and it's just been a pleasure. And it's really fun to capstone the launch with this new layer that we're talking about around data intelligence, around context. We started with Chadd and we talked about the unified data plane, right? The foundational platform, then moved to the intelligent control plane and all the great things we're doing across Fusion and Pure One to automate. And now we get to go tell customers about what they can do contextually and really address some of the big challenges they have with, where is my data located? What kind of data do I have? Is that data safe to actually use? How did you all get started on this journey?
I'll just add one more to it. It's in a heterogeneous environment.
Correct.
Where it is across the board and continuous in nature. And I think that's a huge advantage that we get being part of Everpure and for our customers as well, is it's our storage, the cloud, mainframe, all the way into on-premise servers, structured, unstructured. And the beauty of this is that all of a sudden we've got this massive platform with Everpure to add value and get value from, so that we can make these intelligent, actionable, orchestrated things to happen within not only storage, but the data plane as well.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction. We can certainly add value and augment the data management if a customer is using Everpure, but you're able to go out, discover, classify, like you can find it anywhere. And it's interesting. You mentioned mainframe too. Like we had a mainframe solution company at Accelerate for the first time that I can remember
Isn't that amazing?
in a while, and it makes sense. And they're still out there, right? They haven't gone anywhere. They're still running many things that we don't know.
And you're really into statistics, so I'll throw one out here. 64% of all financial transactions still happen on mainframes.
I love that.
Isn't that incredible?
Well, and how much
from the Wall Street Journal?
How much healthcare do you think is still running?
Healthcare, I heard, is like
amount?
close to about 40-ish% as well.
Yeah.
And mostly on the records side of the house. The OLTP side is pretty high on the financial services as well. So we're in really good stead right now. IBM OEMs us as well.
Yes. Oh, I did not. I did not. Okay.
So IBM OEMs the product, which is Everpure Data Intelligence. They rebranded it as IBM discover, and classify. And it's within the Guardium suite. So we've got a really strong security presence and enabling security workflows through IBM.
I love that. I did not know that. So this is why I do this program,
Yeah.
because I can find out new things. You came to us as the CEO, as the leader of OneTouch,
Yep.
and now are the general manager of the data management BU in the broader digital and data experience DDX team, which is awesome, super fun. Always working with Prakash. He has many ideas, and we'll call you at any time of day to talk about them. But
Effervescent energy.
yeah, unlimited. He needs people to balance him out, right? How did you all get started on this journey? What was the aha moment where you looked at things and said, you know what, there's a gap, right? There's a gap in what customers need and something that's holding them back, and we feel we can deliver a solution that will really provide a tangible benefit.
You know, there's product-related things,
Yeah.
there's business-related things, and technology-related things, right? And why do I take technology away from product? I'll just talk to that. So in the world of business, data was becoming more and more important. And GDPR was that catalyst that said that they wanted to understand what data was all about. And then it became very clear that you needed technology to make that happen, because you can understand that someone is John Smith coming in to New York. Is it the same John Smith who's crossing the border in Canada? Is it the same John Smith coming in from San Francisco? Well, that's what started the technology, a grant from the Department of Homeland Security to say, can you contextualize the people coming through the borders? Now, if you fast forward a little bit, we made it into a product. And the product really said, how can we take this GDPR requirement, privacy requirement, compliance requirement, and the fact that we are the best at building context around data based on discovery and classification, so that you can make business decisions in an informed way that can be built for compliance, governance, and for security. Now, the great thing that happened here, and I don't relate ourselves to NVIDIA lightly, given how great NVIDIA has done, we also felt that we were lucky where we were. NVIDIA had built these fantastic GPUs, worked well for gaming, worked well for document management with Adobe and others. And then when this AI boom happened, they were there to enable this.
Right place, right time. Yeah.
Well, one of the biggest challenges AI has is that it needs to understand data. It has access and it consumes data from everywhere, but it needs to understand the relationships between data. And because we were building this context into our model for GDPR, saying this is actually John Smith living in England, therefore the data cannot sit outside of Europe, let's say, we use that context to enable AI tools to have much better inferences, much more accurate capabilities.
It's an interesting foundational story that really GDPR was the springboard that got you going.
It really was.
But then as the market shifted and things changed, you were already in the right position, right, to again, go and augment for what AI needed and provide a really complementary approach. That is, GDPR just changed so many different ways of looking at data that we didn't realize at the time.
Absolutely. And now you just think about it, and I think Everpure has done a fantastic job of creating a Lego plate on top of storage with our software, which allows us to do many, many things that other storage vendors can't do. Similarly, we created a Lego plate that gave you understanding of where your data was, regardless whether it was structured, unstructured, on-prem, in the cloud, but even data at rest and data in motion.
Yeah.
Right? So now you take that Lego plate and you say, we'll add context to it, business logic on top of it. All of a sudden, you can put the right Lego blocks on it. So it started off with GDPR compliance, went to security, and now we add the block on top of both compliance and security, an AI-ready data block. Right? Because you need all three blocks to make that happen. So I didn't realize that the early days of getting access to Lego in India, which was a hugely popular thing that not very many people had the honor of having, we got access to a few Lego blocks, is going to pay off later off in life as well.
Lego then, Lego now. Well, going back, what was your journey to get to where you are now? Like, what was your background? Were you in IT? Were you know,
Yeah.
did you start as a practitioner?
Yeah.
And I purposely didn't look at your background so that this would be fresh
Yeah.
for me. I didn't cheat. I didn't
Yeah.
I didn't look at the test ahead of time.
I did the standard process, went
Uh-huh.
to school, computer science,
Okay.
economics, got my business degree. But what was really unique for me was coming to the Bay Area.
Okay.
I went to school in the Midwest, grew up in India, went to the school in the Midwest. And when I came here, one of the things that was clear was that technology is here to transform business processes. And the ability of our teams here in the Bay Area and around the world, but since I live in this microcosm, really got me into this world of where is that technology transforming things to add value. And value comes from multiple different angles, right? One value comes from much more efficient business models, so cost. One value comes from more business that you can do, revenue. Another value comes from being more competitive. So you have the first mover advantage. So all these values were being created by technology all around us. And similarly here at OneTouch, my previous startup was doing about 80% of its, so it was an ethical hacker platform, about 250,000 ethical hackers. And 80% of all bugs were found by our hackers for our customers
Incredible.
on data that was sitting in the wrong place.
Aha.
Now, people made millions, and I'm not kidding you, Rob. We paid over $60 to $70 million in bounties out. A lot of it was because data was mismanaged. So when OneTouch makes this available, it's allowing customers to understand where their data is and then protect it, comply to laws, and now make it AI ready. And that's the value of what the Everpure Data Management Business Unit is going to be doing.
I love that. And you just set me up really nicely for my segment around stat of the episode by what you just covered.
There you go.
Right there, right? Forrester has estimated that between 60 and 73% of enterprise data goes unused for analysis, right? It's just sitting there, it's dark, it's disconnected from decisions, and is available for ethical hackers to go and find issues with. Because again, I think that's the underlying thing we need to make sure we keep in mind here is you've already nodded to it a couple times, but the security aspect, like this was foundation on GDPR and data sovereignty and knowing how and where things are. But that really backs up and goes back to those initial questions that I hit at the top is, you know, what data do we have and what's relevant to the problem we have? And is it sensitive? Is it governed? Is it safe to use, and not just by AI, since that is the big usage, but by anybody.
Day-to-day, everyday visibility is important. You know, I would say that most of our customers are on a journey.
Yeah.
Right? The journey starts off basic, reactive, proactive, and advanced, if you will. The basic is you need to have total visibility.
Yeah.
If you don't even know where your data is, you don't know what to do with it, right? Then you get to more reactive. You have an audit report that comes out or an audit finding is requiring you to do an audit. All of a sudden, you need to do compliance-related stuff. And then you be proactive and say, oh, those ethical hackers told me that there was data sitting around before someone else gets to it, which is a nefarious actor gets to it. Let me just protect it. So that's the proactive side with security. And AI, obviously, consuming everything, is using this. So why is that stat really important, Rob? Because I'll just tell you there's many, many reasons that data is sitting in the rot way of doing things, redundant, obsolete, and trivial. The first one is, if you think about databases, and I wrote a bunch of databases growing up.
Yeah.
And the first one really comes out with the fact that you have data, and relational databases, when you start building them out, they just poof, keep creating much more data about the same data.
Tables, rows, you know, just expanding ever forever, right?
Yeah. So when I was at Actian and we owned Ingress, we knew that was a beautiful business. And the reason was that first, people didn't even know where the Ingress servers sat.
Yeah.
Right? The second thing is they were just replicating like crazy. Replication requires data to be copied many times. ETL processes require data to be copied many times. Applications require data to be copied many times. Data lakes require data to be copied many times. Now, it's fantastic for us in storage, But the big challenge for customers is that they don't fully understand what is the right data. So this gave evolution to this whole idea of data catalogs. Now you do a forensic analysis on all your data and you say, that is the right data you should be looking at. And IBM also did a study which said 15% of data is truly sensitive and what people use.
Okay.
So it's very much in line with the Forrester number.
Yeah.
And says, now those are the 15% we should be looking at on a day-to-day basis. But AI has changed that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, your day-to-day business data is not sufficient to be protected. It needs to protect everything else because these tools are crawling all over the place to get to it. So because they're trying to build the relationships, they're trying to come up with inferences. And as a result, this raw data has become a compliance and security challenge. So getting good discovery and classification from Everpure Data Intelligence becomes that first step, basic step of total visibility. And then we contextualize it with the right business process information and the relationships around that data so that you can have the right kind of orchestrated action for security and AI and things on those lines.
We take them on that journey that you articulated.
Exactly.
Right. What's the source of this though? Right. I mean, I know one of the big messages we talked about Accelerate was sort of the nature of applications being beholden to data, and you bring up the Ingress database as a really great, apps run on that, apps access the database. But is there an organizational challenge? Is this a tooling challenge? Is this a storage challenge? Is it a data culture challenge? I mean, what's at the source of it? Or you're just going to tell me it's kind of all the above?
No, interestingly, it's how evolution happens.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
It used to be OSI models and, you had the different layers. And then applications evolved, and I'm like fast forwarding 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
Applications evolved and they became the place where everything was contained, whether it was the data, the business process that was used within the data. Let's take a CRM application like Salesforce. So they have some pretty amazing, super sensitive data about people's customers, partners, and all the deals that probably went through, right? So on top of it, they had processes, stage 1 through stage 10 to close a deal. On top of it, they had record keeping in terms of which were customers, which were prospects, which were partners. On top of that, they had history in terms of timelines and, was it a renewal? Did it not renew? Why did it not renew? What was the competition that took the deal away if it was competitively lost? So all this sat in this application. Very, very sensitive data.
Layers and layers.
Layers and layers.
Yeah.
So they put ACLs, access control language, around this data in the application. And people felt very secure.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? The application is securing it. I'll let it have it. It's all good to make that come together. So either they threw money at it to manage the risk there, or they created some risk profile around it, which the application vendor was happy to provide. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, AI comes along and says, yeah, you know what? You took this data, downloaded it to a spreadsheet, and emailed it. Ashish sent it to Rob and said, look at this great customer segment that we should go after and do some marketing to for Everpure Data Intelligence. Now, that's unstructured data, which is all this sensitive information that went in an email, and all of a sudden, AI has got access to that.
That's right.
Right? So what we do for several of our customers, I'll give you a couple of customer examples because I think it makes a lot of sense here. So one of our customers says, I've got all this production data that I know engineers have copied and put it into non-production environments, right? Some of them have changed the information because they tried to mask the social security number so they could do things to it. All of a sudden, both of these environments are accessible to their LLM crawlers. So as a result, now you need to be understanding which is the right data to train the LLM crawler on. So one of our major insurance companies is using us to understand production data sitting in non-production environments. Not an easy task, but we're doing it across over 20 petabytes of information.
That's insane.
Right?
Yeah.
Another customer is a hotel customer. And this is where the email thing comes in. It blew my mind. So there's a privacy law called Argos. And what Argos says is that if you are a US resident or a US citizen, so you don't even have to be a citizen, traveling outside the United States, going to stay at a hotel, your data cannot be held locally in that
Yeah.
hotel.
Back to the sovereignty thing. Yeah.
How many times have you gone internationally and people have taken their phones or iPads and taken a picture or even scanned on a fax machine? Where do you think that data is sitting?
Yeah.
It's sitting locally,
Right.
right? Now you have franchise and unfranchised hotels. So on the
Oh my gosh.
for those that are franchise hotels, these are not even owned by
Yeah.
the hotel owner, right? Like it's a local entity that's owning it. The bill comes to the main home office when they find private information out there. So one of the airline companies does the following. They have their crew information, social security number, passport number, name, even address, and a credit card. And they forward it in an email and say, give me 10 rooms for 2 days because my crew is flying in. All of a sudden, this is super sensitive data going out in an email to a second entity or a second organization, and it's being managed how? Nobody knows. And it is a huge privacy problem. So we intersected here. This is data in motion that I was talking about. Data at rest, we can scan.
Yeah.
Data in motion, we looked at it. We said, why is this email going out? And why does it have an attachment? And by the way, there's a document in there with a credit card, which we have OCR capabilities, and it actually has social security numbers. Let's quarantine this email, bring that out.
So you can actually intervene in the middle of some type of activity to quarantine or to alert or both.
Or orchestrate
Just as
an action.
yeah, orchestrate an action, which I'm sure you can set up ahead
Yeah.
of time, right?
Exactly. And what's needed there is accurate discovery and classification
Yeah.
and understanding context, right? So there's so many applications on this that really add to the point you were making, that applications by themselves are not the purveyors of the future of data, because in the old days we felt comfortable that it was in the secure area.
Yeah.
That security is breaking out because the data is being taken out of the application and sent in multiple different places.
Well, and you have all these compliance frameworks now internationally that require the data to be accounted for
yeah,
in whatever location it's in. And we talk about that. I had Patrick Smith on back in November. We did a whole thing on data sovereignty and maybe less so
now it's also
here
AI
domestically,
sovereignty,
but then
frankly.
AI.
Yeah.
So how would AI is obviously making that more challenging, but how would you describe? I love that term, AI sovereignty.
Yeah.
That's a new one.
So
for
data
me.
sovereignty was about where the data
Yeah,
sits
where
and
it is.
keep it sovereign.
Sure.
Partly GDPR sort of enables or facilitates that. AI sovereignty is a new set of laws that are coming out. And I think last year I was tallying this. Every 2 days there was a new law from somewhere in the world.
On AI
Law
sovereignty.
25
Yeah.
from Canada,
Yeah.
and Australia came out with this law that LLM tools running in Australia can only access data in Australia. And LLM tools running outside of Australia cannot access data in Australia. So these were some of those laws that are coming in, and that's what's AI sovereignty. It's based on the data and then the location of the model and the tool that is using it.
I just go back to the examples that you provided there and that we don't even think about on a day-to-day basis, right? I travel a lot. You travel a lot. We have all of our sensitive data in various different forms and places, but you don't really think of the implications or the ramifications of where it goes and how it goes, and then even double-clicking down into, gosh, I forget about that a lot of international hotels say they are that brand. I won't say one of the main chains, but really they aren't.
Exactly. 14 hours flight from here to, let's say, England.
Yeah.
You're not asking them, why are you keeping my data there? You're just telling them, get me my room.
I just want a room when I get there.
Exactly.
After circling Heathrow for 45 minutes at 6 a.m.
That's right.
I just want to get to my room and then sleep it off a little bit. So what? At a 30,000 foot view, maybe we won't do 50,000. Describe the platform offering for folks, and you've been hitting it all throughout in a wonderful fashion. But I want to make sure, I'm riding on an elevator with Ashish for 2.5 minutes. It's a long ride. I go, what do you do?
At the
what
most
is,
fundamental level,
yeah.
we discover and classify your data. Discover means we'll look at any data from anywhere, find it, and say, hey, is this sensitive or not? That's what classification does. Here, we'll find private information, health records, and all sorts of other information that is considered sensitive. That classification allows us to say this file is sensitive or not. We then contextualize it. And when we talk about contextualization, it's about enabling the business process and the use of that data to be embedded into the classification. So it could be an employee of American Express, and if they're a faithful employee, they're carrying an American Express card as well. So they're also a customer of American Express. So how does that business process matter for when the data is being looked at as an employee versus that being looked at as a consumer? Fraud, AI tools, thinking about data where that consumer side is coming, employee tools, thinking about employee data. So classification and contextualization becomes important. So we do discover, classify, contextualize, so that you can protect your data and make it AI ready.
And I love when we had talked before at one point, for people who don't quite understand context. You had this wonderful example which unlocked it for me, basically around mapping, right?
Yeah,
Around finding your way, and that if you take that map example and you go from, the stuff that we used to do a lot of road trips when I was a kid. My dad would throw a paper map at me in the back. And,
isn't that amazing?
And that was fun. I was 8 years old, and he'd say, "Okay, figure out how to get us from point A to B." But all I had was this static map. When you talk about context, it starts there, but then it goes to something more detailed. Walk everybody
So one of
through
the
that.
cool examples I had this weekend.
Yeah.
My kids are home from college, and I was asking them to do something, and they looked at me like, what's the old man asking them to do? And my wife gave them context. English is a second language for him, so give him some room. Now that is what context is.
That's context right there.
It's the relationship between subject and predicate.
Yeah.
So on your maps example, let me just add to it a little bit. So I grew up with paper maps, Thomas Guide.
That's what I loved a Thomas Guide.
Loved it.
So much fun.
So creative.
Yeah.
You looked at this page and it said go to page X and quadrant, B4, right? And you could go find this detailed street map there. Then came GPSs.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they said, look, we'll make your map electronic. So it's on a electronic device, so you're not looking down at a map while you're driving. And then we'll add to it the street information. And to a certain degree, we'll give you the context around what's the best way to get there. And they said, it's based on left rights. If you're taking 4 lefts in America, right hand side of the road, you can get there faster than taking the other side, or 4 rights versus 4 lefts, right? So that was all logic and context that was built in, because they're using the information about the streets to tell you what's the best route.
But they got out of date, right?
They got out of date.
They got out of date. You had to pay a lot of money for an update.
Absolutely.
And no, it was a great advancement. It was something that added value, because you can't really drive and look at a Thomas Guide.
And then Waze took them out of date in a huge way. Yeah. First, it made it easily accessible, democratized access to it. The second thing, so you didn't have to pay the $350 to buy that.
Right.
Or the $18 to rent it per day in a rental car.
Or just do what I did, which was not update the car at all and just end up going the wrong way or end up at a dead end.
Right. But Waze started adding huge context.
Yeah.
It started adding context about, first, is there traffic?
Yeah.
In the route that you're going to take? Is there a police person sitting behind an overpass that you should be made aware of because you've got a lead foot and you're driving too fast? Is there an accident? And this context allowed you Waze to tell you, instead of taking route A, take route B, even though 1 mile longer is going to get you there faster and get you there safely. And that's what context does. And that's what we enable in our platform, with the fact that this is an employee and the same entity is also a consumer, but the context allows the business process to manage the data more appropriately. And in today's world, the AI tool to utilize the various endpoints from that data in a way to make the right inferences.
Yeah, you're providing almost four-dimensionality around the data, right?
Exactly.
Who touches it? Where does it go? What are the regulations that are required? I mean, I love that. That map example makes it super clear. And it's related to something that we refer to as knowledge graph,
Exactly.
right? So talk about that for a little bit.
So when you think about knowledge graphs, a graph typically is bringing together pieces of information so that you can make relationships come together, and to a certain degree timelines as well. So when you take that and you create intelligence into it, people call it a knowledge graph. So it actually has to start with the idea that there's a similar way of talking about something. Then you create an ontology on top of it. And a lot of people talk about ontologies as a graph as well. But ontologies are then manifested into a knowledge graph because you start adding time elements and relationship elements that come from the ontology but are kept knowledgeable and continuously updated. And so we built a knowledge graph because we understood that the subject could have many predicates, right? And the relationships between those could be different. So Ashish, brother of Atul. Ashish, husband of Avni. Two very different relationships that matter in discussions. So one of our customers in the healthcare industry had a pretty interesting finding. And I think we showed this at Accelerate as well. This was a customer that did insurance, for health insurance, and provided services for various people. And the dad had a certain hereditary disease and was looked at for that hereditary disease. Now, interestingly, we were able to relate the dad based on the Social Security and a form that the dad had filled out for his son many, many years ago, saying that they wanted to get insurance for the son as well. All of a sudden, that son happened to become a player in a sports agency, let's say, a big sporting world. And we saw, or the insurance company saw, that the person had a hurt knee. And all of a sudden, they said they should also be checked for a hereditary disease because it's the same Social Security number as the father had a hereditary disease on.
That connected back to that form.
That connected back
before
and to
that piece
person.
of data.
Now you think about it. People talk about needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
This is a needle in the ocean, right?
Yeah.
And we connected this data for them because we had the context.
Yeah.
This is dad relationship to son, hereditary disease relationship to dad. Hereditary disease means relationship to DNA. So do a DNA test, and all of a sudden we're able to help the agency. They did the analysis on it. Help the agency figure out that they should do a DNA test and get in front of the hereditary disease. That is the power
Super
of context.
powerful. But it's very human as well, right? I mean, this is just not just taking it to the technological level, right? There's some human impact and elements that go there. And I would invite people, we did demo a version of this at Accelerate. You came out and the wonderful Mr. Matt Bradford walked through that.
Incredible.
We can talk about it here with words, and yes, we're on video, but to actually see, and I actually saw it ahead of time. Mike Adams was showing me, different versions of it and getting what do you think about this and how does this look, and to see it and just to see the knowledge graph, that visualization,
it evolves,
and the different connections that are there. Like you said, it's not just a one-way connection. It's that multi-dimensional. It's super powerful. But you can't do all that if you're not able to actually understand or find or get the context.
And why is this important for AI, Rob? This is the big thing, right? So AI tools can think about statistical models, but they can't build relationships. So they're semantically deficit, right? So when you think about it, most of our customers say that there's multiple problems why AI is failing. But the four that come up to the upper end in all my conversations, first one, they say data is in silos.
Okay.
These application silos that Charlie talked about.
Yep.
It's a silo. Nobody else has got access to it. If you don't have access to that as a user, you don't get to benefit from
Or
the
you
data.
don't even know it's there,
And
right?
you don't
Because
even
it's
know
in a
what's there,
silo.
right?
Yeah.
Second one is unstructured data is growing
So massive. Yeah.
crazily.
Mm-hmm.
This example of my downloading Salesforce and sending it over to you just because we want to market to a specific segment, that's unstructured data, and that is happening all over. People say 90% faster than structured data is the growth of unstructured data. The third is governance.
Okay.
They want to make sure that they're on the correct side of the governing laws, the governing policies of a company, and the security policies of a company. But what's evolving even faster as a gap is the fact that the data they have doesn't have semantic knowledge. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have the relationship of the business process that might be embedded in an application or embedded in a person's, day-to-day work life or brain. That if this data comes along, this is what I'm supposed to do, right? We need to build those relationships because that's going to allow the AI tool to use its statistics in the right way, not hallucinate, and give accurate results. So, in the absence of that, the example I would bring to bear here is if you want to build a loyalty program, you can look at all sorts of relational databases and where the person spent money and all those things, and you can come up with a loyalty program. But in the world of AI, if that right person is making that specific reservation in a particular airline and has a certain kind of status with the airline, all of this context needs to take it into account while making that reservation,
Yeah.
right? And it's super important for AI tools to get the right accurate inferences based on this context. And that's what we provide.
Yeah. And it's a boost. And I think it's important we hit on both elements here is while the AI is certainly hot and came along at the right time, we've still spent equal time on the data sovereignty and the security issues because the AI stuff is super exciting and opens the new business models, and to your point earlier on the cost and the revenue, the other big three one is risk, right? And if you get impacted by risk and
it's reputational risk and dollar risk.
all of it, right? All the above. And so you're really hitting all three of those. It just sounds like the right solution, not only to address cost and risk issues, but also you've described a couple examples with the loyalty program and others where this is something that actually could be revenue generating or creating new opportunities.
Absolutely. And this is where that Lego plate thing comes in again.
Yes.
We give the Lego plate, the first 3 Lego blocks customers put on is compliance, governance, and security. And then the next block that goes on top of the plate and these 3 Lego blocks is now I feel good about enabling that data to be used by AI. So it's definitely a journey going in that direction. Everpure as a company makes it that much more easier because now we've given them discovery, classification, and context. With data stream, we give them the ability to vectorize it.
Right.
And with FlashBlade and FlashArray, we give them the ability to do this in an insanely scalable, cost-effective manner. So when you think about this, it's giving a very nice ability for customers to look at that whole pipeline of data. And while you're doing that, it also allows you to take the relevant data because you only need to take the contextually rich data.
The stuff that matters. Right.
And train the models on. So you use fewer tokens. You can use SLMs instead of LLMs. And I would submit to everybody here that not every application requires a LLM.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a lot of things we do in our own platform using small language models because we've given it the right context to make the right kind of inferences. Yeah,
there's a word that kept coming up when I had Chadd on to do the first 2 launch episodes that connect with what you just described, putting it all together. And you jumped on, you did great there going ahead because that was my next thing was to add it into like how it fits with Everpure. So I love that you're a great guest. But Chadd and I kept bumping into the word intent. Right? Intent around the data. And it was, again, related to the Fusion side and the automation side and the Pure One side. But imagine now if you have the intent for what you want to do around the data, but also then you add in the context and that deep understanding and that deep knowledge,
Yeah.
but also being able to avoid some of the risks that come with, the dangers around not knowing what's there.
Exactly. And intent is a major contextual signal,
Yeah,
right? In lead generation today,
of
right?
course. Of course.
People think about lead generation, there's the persona, right? Who you want to go to. Then there's the firmographics, which is what kind of company, vertical, size of company, things on those lines. Increasingly, intent has become a big signal because it provides context about this person going and making the relevant searches.
Yeah.
And those searches suggest there's intent to buy,
Yeah.
right? And if you can connect the three of them together, all of a sudden you've got a much higher ability to take that lead to completion for a sale.
Yeah. It's a big part of what we've looked at relative to the buyer's journey over the last couple of years as well.
Exactly.
And how buying groups participate collectively as opposed to just a single individual.
That's exactly
And you
right.
can find intent from a set of different people within a company, and it's just fascinating how
Absolutely.
that's evolved and how you're a part of that. What's the message to our storage folks that are here, right? So I'm a storage practitioner, maybe an IT director, and maybe I don't entirely live in this world. I'm just concerned with managing the data, but what do I need to understand as someone that's lived kind of in the IT world about what this can do? Because this may be looked after in a security organization or maybe a CDO type of office if a company has that. What would you say to the storage practitioner here?
First, most of our customers, which we've got, thankfully, a very large number of large enterprise customers, these are alliance decisions.
Yeah.
These are decisions where the CIO, inclusive of the infrastructure buyer, inclusive of the storage buyer, comes together with the chief data officer and the chief information security officer. Doesn't mean all three of them need to make the decision, but what does happen is that one of them has a use case, and that use case is the, if you will, catalyst to make a decision. But the three of them come together. And first point is to our storage buyers, make sure that you're living in that alliance world, because everybody is looking primarily at data nowadays, because that, of course, a lot of people say data is the new oil of the business, right? So to make it something that is unlocking opportunities within your business, you need to be able to give good visibility, total contextual visibility. And I think our storage buyers have the ability to enable that without even needing to go inside the file. Because when we think about our canonical object that builds up our knowledge graph, so these canonical objects connect together to say that you need to think about this because there's a certain relationship that matters, right? So a canonical object from our side is there's physical information. This file, this size, kind of file, how large it is.
The specifications, the basic,
who accessed it or not,
Yeah.
right? On top of it, you put the business layer of information, which is it an invoice? Is it a standard record? Is it email? And that business context becomes very important. We haven't even looked at the data inside the file at this point. The next layer is entity. So does that file actually have PII data, right? On top of it, now you add relationships. Those relationships say, oh, this is dad's social security number connected to son, which allows you to create the last one, which is segment of one, son that should be tested for that DNA test we were just talking about because of hereditary diseases. So the value that the storage buyer can have to the CDO and the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, and others within the organization is to responsibly understand where their data is and to enable that data to make better business decisions. And you can do that very effectively at the storage layer. When we got acquired, there's a mentor of mine who said, you guys did it right. And we hadn't even done anything at this time. We just got acquired. The fact is that you're going to bring understanding to the source.
Yeah.
Because that understanding at the source makes AI-ready data at the source. And that is super important. And our storage buyers have a humongous opportunity to have massive impact within their organizations by giving that core understanding, even in layers 1 and 2 of physical and business, let alone when you think about the entity and the relationships.
Yeah, and that's an ongoing trend and a story we've always told here at Everpure about eliminating the mundane tasks that administrators and storage users have to do so that we free up their time to focus on things that are strategic for the business. And so
Exactly.
their investment in understanding the data more in the context and creating those partnerships with the CDO org or the CISO org or even the lines of business, right, who are looking for insights or looking for things that can help them be successful, it elevates IT to a partner with what the business is trying
That's
to do
exactly right.
rather than focusing on mapping LUNs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then the question I'm sure you're going to ask at some point, so I'll just jump on it right now, maybe, is when you think about the data, right? And you think about how that data is stored. For the day-to-day business of the storage buyer, there's a huge amount of value. Because all of a sudden, you can now understand where all your data is duplicated,
Yeah.
where the non-production data
Copies, clones,
should
those
not
types of
be
things.
kept
Yeah.
on those lines.
Right.
At the same time, you can make storage decisions on the fly. And this is the question you probably are itching to ask is how can this be inculcated into all our other tools that we provide to our customers, whether it be Pure One orchestration, Fusion, enablement, and even Purity. All of a sudden, if you have a general understanding about the data, you can make decisions about that data. And those decisions enable the storage buyer to focus on tasks that are enabled by the co-pilot, by the intelligence in the platform, and still human insight make a decision much faster than if they had to go search for all this information to make a decision.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna
I think
mention-
about
yeah.
it as a vitamin pill versus needing to eat salads and meats and so many carbohydrates to make up your daily.
It's a booster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You almost get all of that in one vitamin pill.
I love
and then
that.
you can eat other things as well.
Thanks for sharing that message because, again, our classic audience for a long time has been that role.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important for them to understand that. And I was going to mention the Copilot thing too, right? Imagine just being able to engage with Copilot to do all these things and now adding in that contextual layer, which is great. I want to close with a couple of the hot takes. I'm going to take away the oops one. But with everything that we've covered today, what's a trend or what do you think is a blind spot for leaders right now related to what we've talked about with data intelligence, with, what are they missing out on? Or is it simply they need to evolve to start thinking this way in order to stay on top of what AI can do, where data silos are, where there's inefficiencies?
I think context is king.
Context is king. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I would say that's a key takeaway.
Got it.
And don't give up on the fundamentals to run after what the board is forcing you to go, show me how many agents you have, show me how much you're doing on AI. It is important to get the fundamentals right. And now we can deliver this on the data front so much more easily with Everpure Data Intelligence that you can comfortably get into those other areas.
Yeah, we can power the fundamentals or give a booster, as you said. Finally, just on you, and you talked about your career evolution and where you started out. Going back a few decades, I don't know, you're a little grayish like I am here, so I'm putting you potentially in the same range. What kind of advice do you wish you had gotten, or maybe what advice did you get that paid off? I don't know. Go back a couple decades.
Yeah.
What's something that stands out for you that you wish you knew, or that somebody set you on the right path? What stands out?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many great mentors
Yeah.
that I've had, so this is going to be a tough one to come up with. One. I think just being, as I was saying, where technology transforms business processes and being part of that is super important. I think Rich Wong, who's now a partner at Excel, used to be my boss at Covad Communications. He said, life comes in closed loops.
Interesting.
And I've never thought about it until you asked this question like this. But we have to start thinking about closed loops, right? When you think about data centers and cooling plants, they need to think about how can they make heat transfer a closed loop process. Similarly, when we think about oil refineries, how can we think about closed loop processes? And today, with data, we have to think about closed loop processes. Not only is it important to discover the information, contextualize it, but then learn from how it's being used to further the contextualization and build much better capabilities into our own enterprise data so that you can have unforeseen value from that data set because there's gold in that data.
Context is king and closed loops. That is what I am taking away today, which is great. Thank you for much for coming on. This was really fascinating. One of the reasons I started the program was because I wanted to learn more. And this is an area that's very untapped for me personally, but also I'm super hopeful for the viewers and for the listeners, and just getting your ability to not only humanize it, but also provide real world examples of organizations that have taken advantage of the technology. I mean, the sky's the limit here. This is absolutely super exciting what you and the team are bringing, and we're just thrilled that you're here and that the integration is going so well. I mean,
It's just an honor to be here. Thank you, Rob, for having me up
Ashish,
here.
thank
Great
you.
questions. I haven't done this format before, but you made it easier, and I really appreciate that.
Come on back, or let's get some other members of your team. I talked to Jesse and Kirk at Accelerate, and
They're
they were
phenomenal.
they were both game to come in. So maybe when we have some more time, we'll bring one of them in and do a little bit more of explaining on some of the technical details. And
I know they'd be delighted, and thank you for the opportunity. It's just a fantastic event here.
Yeah, no, thanks for being a part of this and being a part of the launch series. You were amazing. We eventually made it happen. We had to push out a couple of times. We're both very busy, but I love being able to introduce this to the audience. So thank you for doing that. Thank you out there. If you want to learn more, you can go to everpuredata.com/launch. And of course, you can go to everpuredata.com and go through the Enterprise Data Cloud section, and there's some great new information on Everpure Data Intelligence that Ashish and the team are leading. Thanks to Ashish for coming onto the program. Please tell a friend, tell a colleague. Definitely share this one out with everyone to get the word out, and do that, and we will keep the great guests like Ashish coming on to the program. And with that, we will wrap. For Everpure, for Ashish Gupta, who I want to thank again. This is Rob Ludeman saying, don't look back. Something might be gaining on you.